Welcome to Gaming Daddies, the podcast where fatherhood meets the digital grind. I'm Tedder, one of your 3 gaming daddies, and each week the 3 of us sit down and talk about the games we're playing, how we balance gaming with family life, and the big conversations happening in the gaming world. Today's episode is all about diving into the topic of screen time with kids. How much is too much, and how/when should we implement it? So grab your controller, or maybe just your 1 hour of free time, peace and quiet, and let's hit start.
All right. So, should be a great week of conversation covering this particular topic. I think it's going to be pretty important to state the obvious that we're not obviously giving you parental advice that you should do it one way or the other, because I'm sure the 3 of us are going to have different, opinions on this. And of course, you're your own, parent, so you parent your children how you see fit. But this is just more of an open discussion. I just felt like that was probably important to put out into the ether.
Yeah, by no means are we giving parent advice, so step back from that. We can tell you what we've done or what we're currently doing.
Or we can also speak from the direction of teachers who have seen it in the school systems too. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started, guys. All right, Kush, are you taking it?
Yeah. So we're also going to have really interesting perspectives on this because we're at different phases and parenting. Jay obviously has grown children, so he can kind of give experience, his experience with that. And Tedder has a 1-year-old child, so they're already kind of tossing with dealing with that and things like that. And our child just turned 3 months, and I think we might be in the beginning stages of that. I don't know. I think he's just more or less interested in just the things going on. So let's just start with some household rules. What are some of the household rules that you guys have when it comes to screen time? Like how long are your kids allowed daily or weekly in front of a screen? How did those rules originate? And what happens when those time limits are tested?
Well, we can go round robin. We just kind of, I'll take the lead on this. So for us, the big game changer was this app called Hour Pact. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but we started using this with Hayden as soon as he got his first phone in 8th grade. That thing was a lifesaver. You could literally hit pause on his entire device. It's like an instant digital blackout. So Gracie got her phone earlier, I would say around 7th grade, because of dance team and the communication needs. And we used that same setup. Ava didn't care much about having one until junior high. And honestly, she barely touched it until high school. She was more of a Netflix and Apple Music kind of kid. She'll put on a show or playlist and just zone out. We've always had some general rules: no devices at the dinner table, screens off at bedtime. But I'll be honest, sometimes I had to remind Ava somewhere neighborhood of 10 times to put it away before bed. Considering my personal screen time and career, I would generally only get to play maybe games on the weekends inside of football season. Outside of that, it's weekends for a couple of hours each day, long binges in the early summer weeks. And that's kind of a general overview of my family and screen time.
Sure.
What about you, Tedder?
Obviously we haven't really had rules up to this point, so it's kind of been, whenever, wherever, however long you want to. But with him, especially, when he was first born, like the first few months, like you were saying, Chris, he's not aware. He can't see very far in front of him, so he doesn't even know that there's a screen on. So we'd put headphones in, and we'd sync them up to the Apple TV or whatever, and we could watch our shows while we're rocking him or feeding him or whatever, and he had no clue what was going on. But, as he gets older, there's several pictures that we have that even we would just have Spotify up on the TV, and he would sit there and just zombie out and stare at the TV, even if there was no moving picture. It was just bright colors or whatever. It grabbed his attention. And, we've always been wrestling with the ideas back and forth about screen time is bad. Don't let your child see the TV for the first 18 months of their life. They needed to blah, 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 blah. And so we've wrestled with it over and over and over again. So I wouldn't say we have rules necessarily, as much as we've just kind of trying to navigate the field of, what's okay, what's healthy for them, what's safe for them. But also as a gaming parent, I want him to experience all these things and do all these things, but how can I do that within his allowed time And then, so, I mean, we plan to have the same rule as far as like no screens at the dinner table, no devices at bedtime, stuff like that. So I've seen a lot of really cool tricks and tips, but we really haven't implemented anything. Although Ronan already does have his very first tablet. He got it for Christmas his first year.
Nice.
So at 3 months old, he already had his tablet.
Well, I mean, as you should. Apple all the way, right?
Nope. My mom got him a Kindle.
Amazon all the way. I mean, obviously, with Noah only being 3 months old, I mean, we're not dealing with that yet. But I imagine that's not too far off into the future. But we have discussed it, and just from what we've experienced out in public, and and all that stuff, like we really don't want to, for him to be like a screen baby, like where he's always in front of one. And so, obvious rules, no, none at the dinner table, the whole bedtime thing. But just kind of figuring out how to limit where it's not just a babysitter, or it's not just something to keep him busy or whatever, where the only way he's digesting his educational content as he's starting to get with that. But right now, he's just noticing, what's very little that's in front of him, and he's starting to notice like colors, and he's starting to get interested in those like things and those shapes and moving shapes and things like that. So we've been kind of discussing that back and forth. When is it okay? When do we want to kind of limit that? And for what reasons are we doing this, or, whatever. So, but even though he can't really see anything, right now, if we're watching something on TV that might be, violent, I try not to like face him that way, even though like, I know he can't see, 10 feet in front of him. Like I still like, I don't want him to see that. Or
Right.
if I happen to have him in my lap, like if I'm hanging out with him because Nicole's doing something, I've started doing this thing where every once in a while I'll move one of my consoles into the living room and use the side table next to my recliner and put like a small TV on it, and I'll just kind of have it there and just kind of game off to the side, and while I'm hanging out with Nicole or watching TV or whatever. And so if I have Noah with me in my lap and he's happened to be with me or whatever, I try to be cognizant of what I'm playing, so nothing violent or whatever, just more arcadey, like fun type stuff where he's not, he can't tell what's going on, he doesn't know, but I mean, just so he's not being exposed to it, I guess. So so considering loopholes, like you have your educational apps, and you even have those things like Jay was talking about where you could just like do a complete media blackout, like set timers, or you can just like cut off access, on the, at the touch of a button. Do you find that useful? Do you think the educational apps are, worth implementing into a screen time, or does that help expand, or do you think that would help expand your rule setting time for that?
It's a good question. Educationally, like educational apps.
Yeah.
Give me an example of what you mean. Like,
So like, this is a terrible example, but like, I went through a period of time where I was using like Duolingo to like, for secondary language and things like that.
Okay.
Or they have like math apps. You can like practice math stuff or geography or, different things like that. And I think Disney has like some, or, different things like that have different little educational apps for kids, like with shapes and all that stuff.
we had these tablets back when the girls were younger called Leapfrog. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
remember
Yep.
those.
Leapfrog.
We had, well, we have twins, and every time we had to buy one, we had to buy two. But I felt like the girls really, they've not been, maybe this is just person to person. They never were really screen junkies. They used it for what was needed, and then they were done with it. They were not normal girls for their ages, and they're both 18 now. Now I think as they're older, they're more in front of the screen, and I would say that like Gracie's in college. I mean, she's got lots of apps now. I mean, she's in front of the laptop as much as she is on, her phone. But that's a good question. And when is it educational? When is it not anymore? I would say COVID probably really brought that out more, to where we were more scrutinizing as to how long or how much is too much.
Right. Ooh, yeah, that'll be a tough thing to have to think about whenever our kids really get into that age range where we're starting to use that. And I don't know if it would affect how long we allow him to be in front of a screen, or if we just integrate that into their screen time already. So, what do you think, Ted? Or you
Yeah.
got any special thoughts on that?
Well, and I wonder too, like you said, would you consider educational apps as part of their screen time, or do you set aside time for it? Like, okay, for instance, reading a book on the Kindle store or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that count against their screen time? Because obviously that's not the same as them sitting there watching YouTube. But do you say, hey, this is part of your screen time? Or like for every minute that you are reading a book, I'll extend your screen time for that day? Like, there's just so many things of like, what can you do to implement that? Or do you just consider, hey, I'm putting an extra 30 minutes for educational apps? But then do they actually use the educational apps or not? So I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of an as needed basis or a as it happens.
You
It's
know,
interesting to think about. Go ahead, Jay.
a good point about, the Kindle. I mean, what all can you do with that besides read books or read short stories or anything like that? I mean, maybe that you can play games on it. Is it any
Well,
different than just say, I'm
Ooh.
going to crack open a novel and start reading it as opposed to, okay, it's digitally on a screen now?
I
I
mean,
think you can. Yeah, go ahead.
he's got a Kindle Fire, so you can basically do whatever you want with it. I
Yeah.
mean, it
Gotcha.
has
Okay.
YouTube on it. It has everything on it. So it's just like an iPad. It's just Amazon's version of an iPad.
Hmm,
So maybe I'm thinking
interesting.
of like the paper, was it paper
Yeah,
white? Kindle
Paperwhite.
paper, it's
Yeah.
basically just for reading books. And I think I personally wouldn't count that against screen time. But then again, what is quote screen time? I mean, is screen time
True.
doom scrolling through Instagram?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it, I mean, that's reading. But I don't know. I mean, I've heard every excuse,
Yeah.
everything under the sun, whether it's my own students or my own children,
Hmm.
Right.
as to what's
And
considered,
it,
screen time.
and that's such an. Because you're right. Because I mean, doom scrolling, YouTube, the educational stuff, the game stuff, the movie stuff, TV show stuff, all of that is like, how do you enforce? How do you set the limits? How do you enforce it?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you teach them as you're setting it and as you're trying to enforce it, like trying to educate them on what the difference is between the two and where it's useful and where it's probably not.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. So uh, so this actually made me think of another question. Did you guys have, growing up, did your parents enforce, how long you could sit in front of the TV or sit in front of your video games or things like that?
Jessica asked me that very question as we were discussing what the topic was going to be
Mhm.
for this week. She said, "What did your parents say to you? If you were in your room and you were, jamming out on the Nintendo or whatever."
Mm.
And I mean, honestly, all I remember is, hey, it's bedtime, and I
Yep.
never, I really don't remember it ever being a problem, and I'm sure that some of that's just blackout from the things that when we were kids. It's kind of, I don't remember that. Well, it's because you choose not to remember it.
Sure.
But I don't remember really getting into a big tizzy over that, except maybe if it was on a Friday night or it was a Saturday night when I was younger. And
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
there were really no plans as opposed to maybe me, getting mad at the screen and maybe shouting at it or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to go to bed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I really don't remember meltdowns. I don't really remember. I don't remember having those. But there wasn't really an addiction. I mean, like kids today, I don't remember doing this on a daily basis by any means.
Just the need to be in front of it.
Yeah.
My parents weren't like super strict with it, but they obviously didn't want me to sit in front of the TV watching TV all day or sit in front of my consoles and play all day, or even way later when I got a cell phone, way late into high school, like not be on the phone all day, and go outside, go do something, go help your dad outside, or go hang out at a friend's house or something. But like, so there wasn't necessarily rules that were established for me. It was more or less, hey, you're on it too much. You need to go and find something else to do, or go read, or do something of that kind of nature.
Yeah. And for me, it was very similar. I wouldn't say it was necessarily a problem as much as it was. like it depended on what house I was at. So if I was like at my grandmother's house, it really wasn't limited. It was we had a separate room, we got to play in it, whatever.
Yeah, that's universal, my man.
Right.
Grandma's gonna grandma.
Right. If we were at my house, it wasn't really limited. Like there weren't really time limits as much as eventually there would be a, hey, I want you to go to the Walmart with me, or I want you to go to the store with me, or like we always had a routine of we did Friday night movie nights. And then we did Saturday mornings. We got up at 9 a.m. and we cleaned the entire house. And like we weren't allowed to have anything on while we were cleaning the house. So I mean that typically took until 1 or 2, and then we, typically, had to go to the store or whatever. So I mean there were limits put on, not out of screen time limits, just general limits in normal everyday activity. But I would say probably the biggest one is every once in a while he'd come up and say, hey, you need to go outside or go play basketball or, do something like that. Or they would come in and be like, hey, I need your help with this. And so it got me away from the screen, but it wasn't presented as you need to stop being in front of the television. So,
yeah.
And whether that was their intention or not, I don't know.
Sure. The few times that I would ever get grounded, I remember growing up, the screens were the first thing to go, TV and video game screens. That kind of helped out a lot, I guess. That was the first thing to go to, so it was a good deterrent, maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, speaking of breaking rules, when rules go wrong, what happens when you come across these accidental all-day binges? The chaos of remote learning, back in the COVID days, the golden era, or even sick days when you have to stay home. And what about when the parent themselves breaks their own rule? How do we navigate all that?
Yeah, we've had our fair share of meltdowns. You hit the pause button on Hour Pact, and I know you guys said y'all weren't familiar with that, but that's mainly for your phones. You can control a lot as to time constraints. But yeah, hitting the pause button there, and suddenly the world ends. Especially with Hayden when he was younger, those were end of days reactions. I would say sometimes, especially, I guess that would have been, 2012, 13, somewhere in there in the early 2010s. But yeah, then there's those loopholes, right? Like when you think they're off their screens, but they're watching YouTube for homework, or they're needing to watch one more episode of something, and it somehow turns into 3 seasons later. Case in point, the girls were into Dance Moms and Vampire Diaries there for a time. And if we didn't monitor that, that would go on for hours and hours and hours. It's not that bad anymore. I mean, Ava watches quite a bit more TV than the rest of us, but and we're not innocent. I mean, we, remote learning during COVID blurred the lines for us as parents and educators. You'd be like, well, they're already staring at screens all day, so might as well just let them unwind with another thing. But next thing you know, everybody's glassy-eyed and zombified from watching Big Bang Theory reruns. Like
I'm getting
one
a call. I'll be right
other.
back.
So
yeah, I mean, we were kind of the same way where we kind of noticed that there's a whole lot of screen time, and even just from us, me and Ellen, it's been pretty chaotic as far as get up at 8, 9, 10 o'clock or whatever, and we'd be on the screens all day long. Maybe stop long enough to go heat up lunch or whatever, and then it's 10 o'clock at night, and we're still on the screens. So
that's the thing for me too. I've noticed that anytime screen time it's almost like you enter a time portal. And then you look up, and I think that's been around ever since I can remember, with the early days of video gaming, with the Atari and stuff. If I went to you mentioned your grandparents' house. Friday nights was grandparent night for me. That I would go and visit them, and they didn't care. I mean, they had an Atari. That was the family's Atari. We had one, and all my cousins would come over, and some of them would spend the night, but I was guaranteed I was staying the night every Friday. And I would get in there. I would say school. I would probably be home by 4. I would eat dinner at my grandmother's that night. And then I remember after dinner, I would always want to eat dinner early so that I could spend as much time as I could. And it would be midnight, 1 o'clock. And then I think that we're probably 6, 7-hour binges, and I talk about my kids now, about, gosh, you got to stop. But I mean, now granted, that was one night a week. That was my Friday night survival mode, so to speak. But No, that wasn't with today's kids, students, even parents, adults. I mean, I call it the doom scroll. I know a lot of people do too, but I mean, like on the phone, you can easily sit in front of a TV and just watch the next episode and watch the next. Thank you,
Mhm.
Netflix, for inventing that feature.
Sure, yeah. And I actually get aggravated when I go to a streaming service and it doesn't automatically play the next episode. I'm like, what we're in this today's technological environment and you
Mhm.
don't have a next episode option. You're going to make me back out and click on the next episode. I mean, how thoughtless are you?
And this is like YouTube TV. I don't know what you guys use or if you have a TV subscription service, but you know, it's like when they've got us trained. If you go
Mhm.
back to live television and a commercial comes on, I immediately want to
Mhm.
grab the remote and I'm going, oh, I can't fast forward through this. I'm
Right.
going to have to wait. So it's that moment in time has changed so much now.
Mhm.
We are so glued to it. We needed it yesterday type of attitude.
Yep.
Um, so
Well, and that's an
yeah.
interesting that you brought up the commercials aspect. 'Cause it used to be, they would have it programmed to where they knew after 10 minutes or 11 minutes or whatever, you would break the episode of the show, do a
Mhm.
commercial break for 3 to 5 minutes, and then come in with the rest of the show. And you go watch YouTube, and number 1, it's sporadic. Who knows when you're gonna get a commercial? And they could be back to back. They could be 30 seconds long. They could be 3 minutes long. Who knows? But I think that's part of the more annoying part about commercials is, when I was growing up, yeah, they were annoying, but they were you got a pretty decent chunk of your show before you had a commercial break.
Huh?
But now it's like I'm a minute and a half in and you're doing a commercial. And then I get 2 more minutes in my show and there's another commercial. And then I'm 2 minutes in. And yeah, I do want to skip those because I can't get any content. A 10-minute episode has now turned into 30 minutes of commercials.
It kind of
So,
reminds me if you go back to the DVR days
mhm.
of and I can't even remember AT&T. We had that service through them, the Dish. I think it was Dish
Yep.
Network.
Yeah.
And our DVR, I mean, we purposely would not watch anything live just so that we could fast forward through the commercials.
Sure.
Unless it was football or it was something sports where it was live and we didn't want to wait on that. But I remember we would record all kinds of series weekly and then purposely watch them an hour or two later just so that we could fast forward through
Yeah.
that. And now you can go into Netflix and what's a commercial?
Yeah.
What is that? Unless you have a TV service. So,
Mhm.
well, I know Chris is out. Do we want to move on to the next topic?
Yeah, I'd say let's go ahead and keep going.
So, what do we got here? Is this the logic or excuses behind it, or is that
Yeah.
where we
So,
are?
yeah, so the biggest thing with logic is, why is it important that we as the adults limit the children's screen time? I
Right.
know us being educators, we've seen the repercussions of it. We've seen how much screen time affects them in a negative light. So we don't want that to affect our children. But then, you know, what do you think
Mhm.
as you've seen it firsthand with your
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah. I mean, and not at a really early stage or
Mhm.
early age in their life.
Yeah.
Like today, it's very common to find any type of technology, whether it was an iPod or something, which I don't really technically. I mean, that's no different than a Walkman, from the '80s. That's music. But I think most parents want to limit screens. I think by
Mhm.
nature, I don't think anybody doesn't want to do that. I mean, there probably are a few people. It's just like I'm going to, immerse my kid in as much technology as possible. But I think we all know it's better for focus, sleep, behavior.
Sure.
There have been numerous studies to prove it. But
Right.
honestly, screens are just part of. I mean, they are a part of modern life. Whether you choose to accept that or not, our kids learn, they connect, they even relax to those things. I mean, I know that when I need to decompress, I'm usually in front of technology. It's not going to be. I'm not
Right.
going to go to the weight room. I don't have a weight room. Even if I had one, I don't know if I'd go there to decompress. But I'm going to admit it. We dads are probably more lenient because we grew up gaming. Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't tell my kid to get off the Xbox while I'm playing Assassin's Creed or if I'm finishing another season of NCAA football.
Mm,
It's like, hey, pot, meet kettle.
mm,
Right.
There's also the whole digital babysitter thing that Chris mentioned as well. That sometimes sometimes it is the only way that you can get dinner made or just catch
Mhm.
a breather for a second. And that in this particular scenario, wasn't in our wheelhouse very often. The technology was there, but not as, it wasn't as saturated as
Right.
it is now. And we had to get creative. We just tag teamed it, as
Right
parents
back.
in those situations. Bye, Chris, again. But sometimes, yeah, you feel guilty. But I think at the end of the day, it's survival mode.
Yeah.
Especially if you're busy parents and both parents work a lot. I know Jess and I are both band directors, so we do spend a lot of time with our job.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not saying we really don't. We've never been the parent that's been a digital babysitter, like here, hand
Right.
the TV or whatever. But because I don't think my two girls were that normal. I mean, Hayden probably was more immersed in technology, using that as a way to cope with I'm bored.
Right.
But I really don't think the girls ever did that until almost high school.
Well, that makes sense. I think, like you said, we've seen, and especially now with this bell to bell no sell, we've seen a huge shift in, kids' interest in engaging with each other, and not even just on their phones, but like it used to be they would get upset about being on phones, and then, they just, it's almost like they couldn't connect without talking about a meme or a video or a text message or group chat or whatever. And now they're engaging about other things, which, I mean, we knew was possible because we grew up in an era without phones.
Right.
Um, and we didn't have technology. I mean, my first smartphone wasn't until I went to college. And so, and let alone an iPad or a tablet. I mean, we had computers, but they weren't super, super great. Um, we still had dial-up internet until I was 12, 13. So, I definitely see the benefits of screen time and limited screen time. And, from a health standpoint as well as a focus standpoint and behavior wise too. We've seen it from Ronan with as little much as he's had. When we took it away, even him just watching Spotify when we take it off the screen and he has a meltdown about it, and I
It's like
definitely
the
see,
on-demand nature. It's the on-demand
yeah,
nature of I gotta have it, and I gotta
yeah,
have it now. And that can be with anything. I mean, if you look at I mean, it could be with food.
hmm,
If food is available all the time and that's all you have, it's the boredom. It's the nature of boredom. Sometimes is what do I fill my time with, and
yeah,
whatever is easily accessible. That fear
yeah,
of missing out, I think, is one of the things that is plaguing society, and not just kids. But I think it's like I need to check, even if it's 2 a.m. I can't sleep. Let me check Instagram. Why?
yeah,
Well, there's really no answer for it. Um,
no.
and I'm sure maybe years and decades from now, there'll be some studies that come out to explain a lot of it. But
Well, I mean, let's talk about today's society and the necessity for screens. Do you think it's possible in today's society that we could even go without screens?
I'll be honest, I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, I think it would take an extremely bad scenario in our world to make it to where even if you knew that it was not even possible to use technology or use a screen of some kind, if we went to that type of um, place in this world, I don't know.
Hmm.
I think there would be a lot of angry people for a while.
Yeah,
It would be just like any addiction, maybe.
yeah,
I mean, if you were treating this as a drug, or a soda, or
hmm,
something like you like, okay, I'm going to purge myself of this, even if you wanted to do it actively. I know that's tough. I mean, I took a break from Cokes and things like that for a long, and in the first couple of days, it's headache city.
yeah,
But then, I guess, I don't know. It's tempting to try to do this myself. But then again, I
sure.
think about it a little bit and go, nah, this is not a good time. Um, but as a society, yeah, I do think that we could. I think it would take everybody to get on board. You couldn't just have a select few people do it. It would have to be everybody
Right.
at once. Go, no screens. Here we go. And then we would have to
Yeah.
find a way to survive. It would just be survival mode of, oh, somebody would explain this at some point, that this is the way everybody was like this from, the early 90s back to God knows when. We survived without it then. We could survive without it now, just like cars. I guess at some point, if we didn't have vehicles, and we had to
Yeah.
walk everywhere, God, it would be frustrating.
Yeah.
But we would we would carve out a path. Um, Humanity will survive, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's possible, but I mean, today we'd have to relearn how to do everything. We'd have to relearn how to communicate. We'd have to relearn how to connect with people. We'd have to relearn how to navigate grocery stores again.
Right.
And even without screens in general, or just personal screens. Because if we're talking about screens in general, period, I mean, there's a whole lot of manufactured items that wouldn't happen without screens. There's a whole lot of, store clerks. You go to Circle K to go get your Monster fix, and everything's digitized over there too. And they don't even need a checker. So, like, I wonder
Well, society would
how,
collapse. I mean, it really
yeah.
would. If it was just all of a sudden like an EMP destroyed all digital technology, and that would be a worst case scenario, obviously. But if it was just more along
Y2K.
the lines of, if it was more along the lines of just something simple like, hey, we just don't have phones like this. Phones are not
Right.
going to work like this anymore. It's only going to be used to call people.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a weird situation. I'm sure somebody maybe could write a book about it. Wink. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it would be an interesting situation to go back and live in the 90s, or
Yeah.
the 80s or whatever, and not have any memory of what a phone is. Or if you did have a memory of what the phone is and went back and tried to go, oh, wait a minute, I can't do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think about it, a year ago, or was it 2 years ago? Whatever. It was the fall of TikTok, where China was listening to everything
Yeah.
we did, and well, we're going to get rid of TikTok, and the world blew up about
Yeah, they did.
TikTok. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I actually went on to TikTok, but just
Well, me either.
how many people lost their minds over TikTok. And I get it from a creator standpoint. That was their way of having money. But the people that lost their minds and all they did was consume TikTok, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if Instagram went away, I mean, I'm an Instagram, Facebook guy. I kind of got caught in the middle when Facebook first came out, being pretty young. I would say 30. I don't know, when did that, 2007?
Yeah.
Maybe a little older than that, but we hadn't seen anything like that before. But I remember
Sure.
not being addicted to it. Maybe logging into Facebook once a week.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't on any phones at the time. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe one day we can go back to that. I do think it's the fear of missing out, what they call FOMO. I mean, I think that is probably what drives most of the screen time now. We
Yeah.
just want to see what everyone else is doing
Yeah.
before someone
Well,
else tells me.
and I remember the early days of Instagram. There was such little content on Instagram that you would literally get to 3, 4, 5 posts or whatever, and it would actually show up and it'd say, you have reached the end of new material.
Right.
And you would go, oh, okay, well, I'm caught up on where I was. And
And
then
that's
you
not a
didn't,
thing anymore.
no, there's no end to material now.
No. Oh,
So
there's not.
it's crazy to think about. It also kind of used to be the, I'm going to take pictures of my food or whatever. And now it's
Oh my gosh.
pictures of everything, tagged everything.
I am so sorry, gentlemen. I had
Hey,
two
no,
very
dude.
important phone calls that I could not ignore.
Hey, it's part of being a dad. I see you've got little one there.
Yeah, he threw up a little bit on Mama, so she's changing
Ah.
right now. So I'm hanging on to him. Oh, speaking of,
Sorry, guys.
You're good.
It's all good.
Fussy babies.
It's part of the
and
podcast now.
there
Forever.
it is, forever, doing it live. So what did I miss?
Oh,
We're talking about
so
taking
much.
pictures of food.
Well, we
Yeah.
were talking about, so we talked about the rules go wrong. We finished that.
Oh,
And then we
yeah,
also talked
yeah.
about, the logic behind why we want to take breaks from screen times, as well as could society last, or what would society look like if we had a break from it. So Chris, what are your thoughts on it? Go ahead and just two for us. Why would we want to limit, and then why? How do you feel about screens being a part of life?
Well, I think just to try to make this as quick as possible, I think screens have become such an important part of our life. It's so ingrained in everything that we're doing now, right? I mean, from things that we do day to day to professions and stuff now rely so much on screen time. It's very important that it's just like anything else. How do we do this thing in moderation? When do we know where do we draw the line where it becomes excessive and we're just too reliant on it? What is it when it comes to education? And feel free to butt in and tell me I'm wrong or whatever. But like, when does it start taking away from other educational aspects that are important? From typing all the time to what would eventually become known as the lost art of handwriting. or, like cursive writing and things like that, being able to do things on just good old fashioned sheet paper and pencil and whatnot. I
Sure.
mean, so how can we integrate all that to make it, to exercise the benefits and still not lose track of other things as well? And as far as limiting screen time and why we would want to do all that stuff, like that stuff can be damaging to your eyes staring at a screen for too long, And of course, now with technology innovations and things like that, we have blue light filters, and I have a pair of special glasses that I used to wear a lot whenever I would game. That were like blue light filter glasses. You would buy them. That's what they were made for. And a lot of our reading glasses and prescription eyeglasses now come standard with blue light filters into them, so
Yep.
it kind of helps that strain and all that stuff. I don't know about y'all, but if I stare at a screen for too long, whether it's phone or game or just doing whatever, that can trigger a headache for me, and it can be pretty bad. So yeah, I think screen time is very important because of how useful it is and what we can do with it. But we have to learn what is the fine line of moderation between what's good and what's excessive, and how can we integrate that with other ways of learning and things like that. So
Yeah.
so I guess that's
Sure.
my take. Hopefully, I answered your question thoroughly.
Yeah. Well, I guess one more question before we move on to the next topic is just, as a dad, we obviously have different views about screens. We have different opinions about the importance of gaming in our lives. Are we going to become more lenient, or Jay, were you more lenient as a parent because we grew up with video games?
I think it's possible. Definitely with Hayden. He was our firstborn. If it had been reversed, where the girls were born first and then Hayden, maybe not. But raising a boy, he immediately, just like you guys are going to understand, that they're going to gravitate to games.
Sure.
And bringing him on board, I think at the time I had the original Xbox. I think that was available right around maybe when he was 3-4 years old, and sitting down and playing Halo, couch gaming together. Obviously beginning with, hey, here's your controller. It's not plugged in. But you're going to help me, or you're going to help me fight through this mission together. And then eventually, as he starts, plug it in, and we would go through hours together. So I probably trained him to game, nonstop. Now that I look back at it, it probably wasn't the greatest of fatherhood. But we had a lot of fun together. Those are memories, that I'll have forever. But I know that as he got older, I think it became more excessive at times. I think he definitely regulates it better. I mean, he's 23 now. He's got a job. He understands that, okay, I've got to go to bed now. I got to get up and go to work. So as an adult, I think he understands. But through the high school, early college years, it overtook him. I mean, it did.
Yeah.
There were times grades failed. Then we had to have those conversations. You've got to manage time. You have to have really good time management to be successful at anything in life. So, and again, we were talking about Hour Pact. We had to implement those things even at later stages, because I could. We had shared phone lines. Under one with AT&T. It's just kind of like, I'm going to control your phone as long as I'm paying for it. I'm going to teach you that you don't need to be on this as much as you think you do. And so I know that's a long-winded answer, but
No.
I know going forward with it, I probably was pretty lenient with them, but with the girls, it was high school really before they cared about technology of any kind. Like I said, we had the leapfrogs, right? They didn't really. They would use it. It was fun for a little bit, and then moving on to the next thing.
That's going to be tough to do, because I think if you're really wanting to moderate that kind of thing, then you kind of have to self-moderate, adjust your own screen time as well, I guess, because you don't ever want, I don't know. My big fear is if I just expose Noah to like 10 minutes of gameplay, he's gonna be hooked forever, and that's his drug for the rest of his life. He's never gonna get out of it. You know what I mean? So it's like,
right.
I want to have those things with him. I want him to hold the second player controller without it plugged in, and and do all that, and and teach him the ways and how to be a proper gamer and all that good stuff. And why am I messing with this? But at the same time, do it hopefully in a responsible way.
Sure.
As he gets older, he's gonna binge. He's gonna stay up and whip out the handheld and play all night, and he's gonna experience those all nighters and the consequences of doing so. Pay for your actions and kinds of things like that. But I don't want him to become so dependent on it where he lives in the phone and he's missing out on the social interactions, especially if he's like hanging out with his friends or especially family and things like that too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I read like Ellen's sister is a lot more strict about it with her kids. And even to the point of like the family that lives in DC, they don't really spend a lot of time on screens at all. Like, I mean, she does. They're all homeschooled kids. So everything they do is paper pencil. Every once in a while, they get like an episode of America's Funniest Home Videos or something like that. But they really don't. They don't use screens for anything, and they don't spend time on video games. They don't spend time on TV, and so it's just kind of become part of their lives. So it's very interesting coming from their side, but like their whole family, like Ellen's sister, didn't really play video games, and her husband is military, and even growing up, he really didn't play a whole lot of video games or didn't see he considered it more of a time waster rather than, a time spender or a hobby. So it's just interesting the different family dynamics. And she introduced the book called The Anxious Generation. If you haven't read it or listened to it, I mean, I have some opinions about the book, but it does bring up some really good points, especially regarding time on an Xbox or how it affects their personality and how aggressive they can be, especially if they're spending all their time on Fortnite or, Roblox or something where it's really kind of not a positive place for them to be.
That's interesting. I need to read that. I'm looking it up right now on Amazon.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I'll say about it is it goes into a lot of extremes. Like, for instance, they bring up the topic of Fortnite, and they say this one mom was talking to this guy. He's a psychologist, and she said, my child is no longer the same happy child they were. They no longer play. They're no longer polite. They're angry. They're aggressive. And he asked about their screen time, and she's like, well, I just let him play, and he'll play 7, 8, 12 hours a day. And then his answer is, well, get rid of the Xbox or get rid of the PlayStation. And then she's like, well, so we got rid of the Xbox and he did great and he never had any more issues and I got my kid back. And so he's like, so the answer is just to get rid of all technology. And it's like, I don't agree with that. Like, see, this spaghetti hurt my stomach one night, so stop feeding my child. Like, it was an extreme response to that.
Right.
I'm not saying 7 to 12 hours of Fortnite is good, but if you would have limited it to you get an hour a day,
it's almost like there's a happy medium in there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's what we talk about, Sith speaking in absolutes, all
Right.
or nothing. You're with me or you're against me. I do feel like there is a happy medium in there that
Sure.
this generation of parents are going to have to find. I mean, we had to experience that later in our kids' lives about what they're doing online, who you talking to. Especially with girls. If you guys ever have girls, I mean, it is definitely different than raising boys. I mean, you
Sure.
will want to know a lot more detail about what they're doing with their phones. But yeah, this book, I find that interesting. I figured there were probably books about how to restrain from so much screen time with your kids. But yeah, it's
well, and this one's. I will say one of the opinions that I really did like about the book is it kind of gives some age ranges of like healthy times for a kid to have a phone, healthy times for a kid to have social media, healthy times. And so it was just like, they should not have a phone until they're 12 years old. There's no reason for them to have a phone until they're 12 years old.
right.
There's absolutely no reason why they should have any form of social media until they're at least 16, if not older.
I didn't get my first cell phone until my junior year in high school, I think.
Well, I was the same way, but to be fair, Chris, they really didn't have cell phones when we were growing up. They weren't.
That's true too.
I mean,
Yeah.
and ours was more of a necessity to make phone calls, but we definitely didn't have smartphones where you could, just send text messages, have access to YouTube or worse,
And
That's
it
true.
still
So,
wasn't back in the late 90s.
mm-hmm,
It still wasn't, or even early 2000s. It wasn't unlimited. You couldn't get the
mm-mm,
phone and just talk for hours and hours and keep it plugged
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
in
Mm-hmm.
and just go without some kind of repercussion for it,
yeah,
paying for
Mm-hmm.
all the extra minutes. Now you can talk
Mm-hmm.
forever.
Yeah.
And there's, it's by design, of course.
yeah,
Um, but I do believe that now there is no repercussions from doing that type of activity for long stretches,
Mm-hmm.
eternal amounts of time.
Yeah.
mm-hmm. So,
We've talked about with him, we're gonna wait until he's way into high school until it becomes an absolute, necessity for like communication. Like we got to pick him
mm-hmm,
up for something or
yeah,
whatever. And I mean, and with the way apps, and we've mentioned this before already, like we can kind of monitor and adjust like what he can and cannot do. And I'm sure it'll even become more so as the years flow on. So
well, let's go ahead and keep moving.
mm,
I know we only got about 10 more
mhm.
minutes left or so. So,
Yeah.
what's actually working? Any tips or tricks? I guess Jay's going to have to be kind of our mentor. We haven't really had
I don't know
experiences
about
to try.
that. Well, I will say I felt like we did the right things with the girls,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
they were the next ones to come along. We learned with Hayden about what did and didn't work, and we feel like I think we did them a better service.
Mhm.
So I'll come at this in a past tense due to the kids being, well, they're adults now. Um, earn your screen time was probably the most effective for
Mhm.
us. If chores are done, homework is finished, if the house doesn't look like a tornado hit it, then cool.
Sure.
Screen time is unlocked. We would use our pact and say, okay, you've got that. We also did some shared gaming time. We had family movie night like you guys were
Mm.
talking about. We would do that on the weekend sometimes. And sometimes I would hop on a Wii game. We had some Wii games that promoted couch play.
Mhm.
That way, so there was some bonding going on instead of isolation. And of course,
Sure.
our pact. I'll bring that app up again. It really, I'm not. I promise, I'm not sponsoring for these guys, but that particular app really did help us hold the line, at
Yeah.
least on the handheld devices like phones and tablets. It
Sure.
wasn't perfect, but it took the emotional debate out of it. So you didn't
Yeah.
have to argue, just tap a button and poof, problem solved. But we've tried the tech-free weekends, and I'm just going to be completely honest with you. It never really stuck. It
Yeah.
always, the intentions were good, maybe for a few hours, and then someone suggests, hey, well, let's watch a movie, and it's all over. So
Mhm.
that's kind of
Well,
my
and
hot take.
sure. And for me, it's, my fondest memories growing up were Friday nights before I did high school band. We'd do Friday nights, we'd go to the movie store, whatever, and it was dollar movie rentals on the weekends. And so you'd go at 10 o'clock, you'd go get a
Yes.
movie, and then you'd
Mm-hmm.
go you'd get two movies, one for Friday night, one for Saturday night. And I mean, we would just have
Hmm.
dinner and popcorn or, whatever other treat,
So fussy.
and we'd watch a movie Friday night. That's not fussy. I'll give you Ronan, but Ronan's fussy. He's whimpering, dude. Anyway, so like, I mean, we would do that, and that was like my fondest memories. Were Friday and Saturday nights sitting down in the living
Hmm.
room watching whatever movie it was with snacks. And so, that's, I don't really consider that screen time, and maybe people would disagree with me, but I think that's more family bonding. Like you said, the
Mm-hmm.
couch co-op. I don't know that it's screen time, but you're building memories, you're building, skills. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
I like the idea of the earn your screen time system with
mhm,
chores and homework and study time and things like that. And that sounds like that. I mean, obviously from your experience, I mean it was very very effective. So I really do look forward to implementing something like that because that's a lot of work slash reward type thing. And, I'm on the same boat with, the movie night stuff because that's what we would used to do from time to time growing up in our house as well.
yeah. Well, let's go ahead and go down to some dad wisdom, some real talk. We got to wrap up the episode here.
Mm,
So the first thing we said here was just consistency. It's not necessarily and I guess this is more of a, do you agree or do you disagree, or how do you feel about this? But it's not necessarily the rule that matters. It's how consistent you are at upholding the rule. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like it says, the best rule is consistency, but flexibility is survival. So yes, have your rules and be consistent, but also, just like you would with anything, be able to adapt and monitor and adjust as you go.
Right.
And kind of just tailor it to your situation or whatever. And for all I know, he could get older and try to put a controller in his hand. He's like, "Dad, what is this? This is stupid." And then we quietly and quickly walk him out of the room, and there it is. And he may,
Right.
he may not have any interest in that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, each kid's going to be totally different.
Sure.
That the comparing from child to child is the first mistake that any parent can make. Hayden was all about social media and gaming, or I would say gaming then social media. Gracie, Instagram, TikTok scroller, and she's gotten way more self-disciplined lately. And Ava, she's the low tech one, but she has to be constantly reminded, turn off Netflix. You've watched enough of that series. And at the end of the day, sometimes gaming with your kids is the best parenting move. Just join in with them so that they see that, you're cultured as well. It's not really about cutting screens completely. It's about teaching them how to handle it responsibly. And like we were talking about, being flexible and consistent. That's with anything in life.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, let's go for our community's take then. Let's ask the community. Community, what screen time rules do work for you and your family? And me and Chris would really like to know. I mean, we're starting to kind of get into this. We would like to know what worked, what didn't work. I mean, we know kind of what worked for Jay, and I'm glad we have him here to kind of mentor us through being a parent. What works for your family, what didn't work? What did you try that you thought was going to end all the disputes, and now you're handing a kid an iPad when you go out to eat? Do you have any?
The world of hypocrisy.
No screens at dinner, but also when we're at the hibachi restaurant, you will have your screen on.
This is 5-star dining.
And also, when we take this 8-hour road trip, I do not want to see your face come up from that screen.
Gosh. It's all a bluey. Yeah, would love to know your experiences and all this. And, I'm getting, it's exciting and scary at the same time to be able to go through, this whole technological screen time journey with, my son, for sure. And I'm sure Jarrett's just equally as excited as that. So any and all of your experiences, tips and tricks, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Screen Time Galaxy, I guess. Drop your takes in the comments.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for hanging out with us today on today's episodes of Gaming Daddies. Don't forget, you can catch the audio version of the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcast. And if you want the full video version, head over to youtube.com/gamingdaddies and join the fun. If you'd like to support the show and help us to take it to the next level, consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingdaddies. Big shout out to our amazing supporter, Sean Donahue, for joining us last week. And you all keep this going, and we couldn't do it without you. So until next time, this has been Gaming Daddies, and we'll see you in the game.
Peace out, Cub Scouts.